Saxophone series. It's your boy Osas, and in today's episode, we are going to be building our message reaction view, which is going to be responsible for displaying the list of reactions that belong to a specific message. So in the completed version of our project on the simulator, when I long press on a specific message and I react to it, right, we're going to get this beautiful message reaction view that's just right below the message. And it gives it a very nice view because, it has a nice blur and it has a nice shadow to it. And also, the more reactions you have to that specific message, the more the count for the message reaction view is going to increase. So we're going to be focusing on that today, and we're also going to be focusing on decoding the number of reactions for a specific message and which specific reactions belong to that message. And so let's go ahead and jump into Xcode and get started with our business for the day. So the first thing I want us to do is to just build this beautiful, message reaction view that's going to be right below our messages or right below our bubble view. So I'm going to go right ahead into our chat room. So inside of our chat folder, I'm going to go ahead and create another view, and I'm just going to click on below the bubble text view, create a new SwiftUI view, and I'm going to call it Message Reaction View. I think that's a good name. And the message reaction view, like I said, is just this beautiful view right here. And it looks like just an H stack. It looks pretty simple. So we're just going to have an H stack that looks like it has a background that is clipped, and the clip shape is a capsule. So let's go right ahead and actually do that. So I'm going to resume our SwiftUI preview, go right ahead and declare an H stack on that bad boy. And I'm going to give it a spacing between the H stack, just a very minimal spacing of 2. And if I jump into the completed version of the project, I'm just going to go ahead and screenshot it so I can see what we are working with, right? And as you can see, this is just an H stack. There's nothing really much going on there. It's an H stack with a capsule as a background. And so I'm going to go right ahead and declare a text. So we need an emoji, and I'm going to go ahead and add the emoji right here. So let's just see, let's say heart icon. And actually, I think we have a list of emoji right here. I'm just going to copy this list of emojis, and I'm just going to use that. So let's just create let emojis is equals to this, and it's just a string, and I'm going to remove the values because I just want to use the emojis themselves. I want it to be an array. Okay, so now I'm going to use this emojis inside of our text. So I'm going to pass in, I'm going to create a for each, actually. Forgive me, guys, a for each. So let's create a for each, and the data is going to be our emojis, and the ID is going to be self, and it's going to return an emoji. And let's go ahead and create a text, and the text is going to be very simple. It's just going to be, again, emoji, and what styling do we want to give it? Well, we want the font weight to be like semi-bold. So let's wait for Xcode preview to actually do its thing. And let's click on that resume. Come on. Sometimes it takes forever. Okay, so we have our beautiful, list of emojis right now. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap this inside of a thin material. So I'm going to do Z stack, and I'm just going to do color.thin material. Is it color? I think so. And then I'm going to paste in our message reaction. It's not color. I'm just going to say color.clear. Well, let's just put background. Let's do background, not background style, background. And I want the background to be thin material. And let's see what happens. And actually, let's just give it a frame, max width, infinity, max height, infinity. So we can see the styling that we're working with. And I think that looks much better. So we're going to change the background of our H stack. So let's go right ahead and actually style up our H stack a little bit. So the first thing I want us to do is to have this font. And that looks like a footnote to me, if I remember. Okay, so it's much smaller. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so we see what we're dealing with. The next thing we're going to have is a pattern of about 4. And let's give it a pattern horizontal on top of that. And the pattern horizontal is just something small like 2. And let's give it a background. So like I said, you can see right here, the background is just a capsule. Okay, so we're just going to say capsule. We're going to fill it with thin material. And I think that's all we need. Okay, that looks so much better. And then we're going to overlay it. So I'm going to do overlay to give it this nice, let me jump to the completed version of the project and let me actually remove this. To give it this nice, beautiful look that we see, there seems to be some sort of an overlay with a border, like a white border. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say overlay, and I'm going to do, this is also going to be a capsule. And I'm going to add a stroke to it, not strike, stroke. And let's see, I want the line width, and I want the one that has a color and line width, or content and line width. So the content is going to be our message, the background color. because if you notice in the completed version of the project, when I long press on this, actually I don't even need to long press on it. You notice the color, the background color of each reaction differs. The birder color difference based on who sends it. For this, for an incoming message, it's white, while for a message that we sent, it's green. So I'm going to go right ahead and do that. So that's why we're using message, the background color. So that means we need to ask for a message, guys. So we're going to say, give us a message, which is a message item. This is going to yell at us. And let's fix our SwiftUI preview by putting a placeholder in that bad boy. And what else do we want to do, guys? So the line width, I'm going to give it something like 2. And I think that looks good. Look at that, guys. That looks so beautiful. Let me zoom out a little bit more, and maybe I should just change this from background color thin material. Let's give it something like gray, color.gray, opacity of 0.2, just so maybe that would create the contrast that we need. That looks better. Look at that, guys. That looks pretty clean. That looks pretty clean. Okay, so what do we want? We have our styling on our H stack. I think we should add a little bit of shadow, because if you take a look at the completed version of the project, there's a little bit of shadow. It's very subtle, but it's there. So let's go ahead and add a shadow to that bad boy. And I'm just going to say shadow, and let's give it color. So the color, I'm actually just going to use the message.background color, and I'm going to give it a radius of 5, and I'm going to give it X of 0, Y of 5, so it comes down a little bit. Look at that. Did you notice that? So 0, it's centered like that, but if it's just 5, it comes down just a little bit. I think I'm going to leave it at that, and that seems a little bit too glowy for me, so I'm going to change it just a little bit. I'm going to add an opacity to this bad boy, give it an opacity of something like 0.3, so it's just barely visible, but it's there. And that's basically our message reaction view. So this is what we want to show when a user actually reacts to a message. So let's go and add this bad boy to all of our bubble views. And the way I'm actually going to do that, before we actually do that, let's also add a count, because you see in the completed version of the project, we have a count right next to our message reaction view. And let's see, I'm going to go right after the for each, and I'm just going to say text, create a text component, and let's give it something like 3. And let's give it a font weight of semi-bold. That looks pretty good. And yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, so that looks much better. So let's go and add this message reaction view to all of our bubble views. And the first one I'm actually going to start with is going to be our bubble text view. So I'm going to take this message reaction view. I'm going to Command Shift and O, jump into our bubble text view, because remember, this message reaction view is just right below each one of our actual bubble views. So let's see, where do we want to put this now? So we have our pattern, trailing pattern. And for this, I'm just going to go right ahead and attach this bad boy right here as an overlay. I'm just going to say overlay, and the alignment, I'm going to do something like, let's say the trailing for now, but I'm actually going to add a conditional logic to this. Let's paste our message reaction view. It's going to ask for a message, and the message is the item. It's called item inside of this file. And let's go ahead and see what that looks like. As you can see, that's obviously an issue. Let's change the alignments to perhaps leading for this, and let's see what happens. Okay. And what I really wanted to do is to match the completed version of the project. And I believe what I'm doing is I'm changing the logic based on if it's sent by us or if it's an incoming message. So if the message is sent by us, it looks like for bubble text views. If the message is not, actually, let's try this. Let me send a message and let me hit that like. Let's see. Okay, so if it's sent by us, it's bottom trailing from what it looks like. And so let's go ahead and add that. And so for the trailing, I'm going to have to create some sort of a computer property for that. So I'm going to jump into our actual message item and create a basic alignment, something that's going to help us align this overlay. So I'm going to Command Shift and O, and I'm going to say message item. And inside of our message item, I'm just going to scroll way down here, and I'm just going to create a simple computer property that I'm going to call reaction anchor. I think that's a good name. And it's just going to be an alignment. And what is our reaction anchor going to do? Well, we're going to say if the direction, if it's equals to sent, meaning it's a message that we sent, I'm going to use bottom trailing. If not, it's going to be bottom leading. Okay, like I said, if the message is sent by us, we attach the reaction view to the bottom. Meanwhile, if it's not sent by us, we attach it to the trailing, to the bottom trailing. And this one is bottom, well, yeah, this is bottom trailing, and this is bottom trailing, and this is bottom leading. Okay, and that's essentially what this reaction anchor is doing. So let's go and use this reaction anchor inside of our bubble text view to properly anchor it. So I'm going to jump back to the bubble text view, and for this alignment, instead of using leading, now I'm going to just say item.reaction anchor. And the reason I put that inside of our message item is because we're actually going to use this over and over and over again. And so let's see, we have a bunch of stuff going on here. And I'm going to actually add an offset. We should add a pattern, but I think we should just use offsets. So the offsets, I'm going to say, let's see, I'm going to say message or item dot show group partner info, meaning if it has a profile, if it has a profile photo, okay, I want it to offset X by 50, else it's 0. Let's see what that looks like. And as you can see, it pushes it further out a little bit because for the show group partner info, we have this circular profile image view. And so for the Y, I want to offset it down. I want to push it down just a little bit. So for Y, I'm going to offset it by like 10. And I think that looks much better. And remember, guys, in the completed version of the project, we're actually going to have spacing. We're going to add spacing in between each of our item when there's an actual reaction. So we're going to fix all this alignment and like reaction and this pattern issues pretty soon. And so we have our message reaction. I'm going to copy this because we're actually going to go and do the same thing inside of our bubble image view. So I'm going to command and copy, jump back. I'm going to copy this bad boy and I'm going to command shift and O, go into our bubble image view. And where do we want to add this alignment inside of our bubble image view? Well, I'm just going to go ahead and actually add it right after our play button. And the same logic is going to apply. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And that is not really what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the offset for the bubble image view. Okay. And I think I'm going to add a pattern, something like 12. Okay, interesting. And let's add a pattern bottom, maybe like -12, like a negative pattern. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, that looks good enough. That looks more closer to what we have in the completed version of our project. I know it overlays the text a little bit, but I'll let you guys play around with that to find a nice, pattern for it. But I think this looks pretty good. And again, remember, completed version of the project, we're going to fix the inter-item spacing a little bit more. And so let us actually do something really quickly. So I just realized this play button right here, this is actually supposed to not be here. If you think about it, it should actually be, we should not be overlaid the play button on the message image view. We should actually overlay it on the image itself, the KF image. So I'm going to scroll the way down here and I'm going to overlay it right here, the play button right here. And I think that's what I actually want to do. So I think that was just something that I mistaked a while ago. And the reason I'm moving it away from this message image view is because if we have a super long text, it's just going to have the play button to the center. Let me show you what I mean really quickly. Let's jump to the current version of our project. And so let's say, for example, we have a super long text message. If this is like a video, that play button is going to appear right here. And that's not what we want, okay? So let's go ahead and also add our... Let's see, what do we want? Let's go ahead and add this bad boy, this overlay on our bubble audio view as well. So I'm going to command shift and O, jump into bubble audio view file, and I'm going to paste it right below. Let's see, where do we want to add this? So right after our trailing pattern, I'm going to paste it right here. And I'm going to add the offset. So this is yelling at us. And the reason is because, remember, we have an environment object here called voice message player. And we need to attach that to our simulator, of course. So I'm going to go right ahead and just add an environment object on this bad boy. And I'm just going to call it voice message player because it's expecting that. And it should be happy now and it should stop crashing. Awesome. Okay, so let's go right ahead and see. That looks pretty ugly. So let's go back to our bubble text view. I'm going to use the same offset logic. I'm just going to copy this offset logic for our message reaction view. Go back to our bubble audio view. And let us paste that on our overlay. So after we overlay, this is what the overlay looks like without any offsets. Let's add a little bit of offsets, and that looks a little bit much better. And I think that's going to be it. So let's run our project and let's see what everything looks like on the simulator. Again, these alignment issues with message reaction view, feel free to play around with it to match whatever specific outlook you want. But this is just what I decided to go with. And let's wait for our simulator to boot up. And the next thing I want us to do in this episode, guys, is to actually decode the reactions that you've set for a specific message. So if we jump into a channel and let's see what's going on. Look at that. This is what the reaction currently looks like. That's awesome. And as you can see, they're kind of overlapping right now, and we're going to fix that. As you can see, also, it's showing up in every message. We know we don't want that because not every message actually has a reaction. Only one of our messages actually has a reaction, which is this message right here, the one that has NXX. And so we know these other messages don't have a reaction, and so they shouldn't even have this reaction, message reaction view. So let's go ahead and fix that really quickly. And the way we're going to fix that, guys, is we're going to jump into our message item. So essentially what we need to do is we need to know if the current message, if a message actually has an emoji reaction, right? And the way we're going to do that is by first decoding our emoji reaction. Because if you jump into our to-do, remember we added these two nodes. We added a reaction node and we added a user reaction node. And we need to actually attach this to our message item because we have not done that yet. So we're not even decoding it. So I'm going to go right ahead and create two new properties right below here. And the first one is just going to be the reactions property, of course. So I'm going to say var reactions. And the reaction is going to be a dictionary, because if you remember from our to-do, it's a dictionary of key value pair. And I think I'm actually going to open this side by side so you guys see what I'm talking about. So close this panel. And so I'm going to squeeze this out a little bit so we have more spacing. So as you can see, the reactions, which is this reaction node right here, it's a key value pair. The key is a string, which is just the emoji itself. So I'm going to say key is string. And the value, as you can see, is an integer. So the value is going to be an int. And I'm also going to add another one. I'm going to default it to nil, by the way. Just default it to an empty dictionary. And I'm going to create another map, another array, or not array, another dictionary. And this one is also going to be a dictionary of, so the value for this is going to be key. the key is going to be a string and the value is also going to be a string, because remember, user ID or UID is actually a string. So it's going to be string and then string. But honestly, this is not very readable for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a type alias for documentation. So I'm going to create a type alias up here. I like to do this sometimes when I'm dealing with like key value mappings. So I'm going to say user ID is a string, and then I'm going to create another type alias. I'm going to say emoji is also a string, and I'm going to create another type alias, and I'm going to call this one emoji count is equals to int. So this is the beauty of type aliases here. So instead of just saying string directly here, I'm going to say, I know this is not referring to any string. It's actually referring to the emoji. So I know the key is going to be the emoji and the value is going to be the emoji count. And if you take a look at that, even if you didn't write this code, just looking at this seems much more readable. You can follow this along. I mean, you can follow along with this code. It's like self-documenting in a way. So type alias can be very beautiful in that way. And then for the user reactions, I'm going to say the key is user ID, type alias, and the value is going to be our emoji. So I think that looks much better. It's easier for you to know what's actually going on here. It's more self-documented. So I'm going to go ahead and close this to-do panel, and let's go ahead and fix all these bugs or all these errors that we're getting right now. And I'm not sure why we're even getting an error. I'm going to default this to an empty dictionary so we can stop getting errors in our placeholders. And that looks like it has fixed it. So let's go ahead and actually decode this. We're going to have to go update our key value mappings inside of our dictionary here in our extension, excuse me. So I'm going to say self.reactions is equals to what? Well, we need to create the reaction key right here. As you know, I don't like using magic strings, so I'm going to say reactions is equals to reactions, and static let user reactions is equals to user reactions. Okay, and so now for this reaction here, we want to look into the dictionary using the key called reactions. Okay, and it's this reactions that we just created right here, this key right here, and we know it's going to be of type. Let's see, the reaction is going to be of type. So what did we call it right here? I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. The reaction is going to be of type emoji and emoji count. I'm just going to paste that right here. Boom. That should fix our error. And then I'm going to default it to an empty dictionary if for whatever reason we're unable to find it. So we need to do the same thing for our user reaction. So I'm going to say user reaction is equals to this dictionary, and I'm going to look for the user reactions using the user reaction key, user reactions, and well, we need to typecast it, not equals. So we know it's going to be of type. I'm going to scroll the way back up here again, copy this user ID and emoji pat, and I'm going to paste this right here. So we know it's going to be of type user ID and emoji as the value. So I'm going to default it to an empty dictionary if the message does not have a reaction. So there's one thing I want us to update really quickly before we proceed. Let's jump into our message service and let's actually use these keys. So instead of using this magic string right here, we could just say .reactions. That looks much cleaner. And same thing for the user reactions. Instead of saying this magic string right here, we could say .user reactions. And that looks pretty good to me. And again, this is inside of our message service, our hard reaction method. So let's jump back to our message item and let's continue our decoding. And so like I was saying, we need to know if a message actually has a reaction. So I'm going to go right ahead and just create another computer property. As you can tell, I like using computer properties for things like this. I'm just going to say as reactions, because then we could just say message.asReactions, right? And it's going to be a Boolean. And we're just going to return if the user reactions is not empty. If it's empty, right? If the user reactions is empty, essentially this dictionary, if this dictionary is empty, then that means we don't really have any reactions. And I think that should solve it. We could even use the reactions as well. It doesn't matter. We could say if reaction is empty or if user reactions is empty, it doesn't really matter. And so we have this, and we're going to go use this inside of our reaction. What did we call that again, guys? We called it MessageReactionView. So now inside of our MessageReactionView, we're going to actually just add a conditional logic here. And what I mean is I'm going to wrap all of this H stack inside of an if block. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to say if message.asReactions, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. Then show this H stack. If not, we're not going to show anything. So let's go ahead and run our project and let's see what happens. And only one of our message inside of that channel has a reaction. So therefore, only one of our message should actually have a reaction. So if we jump into the channel and we at the bottom, look at that. This guy has reactions, which is correct, right? But this guy doesn't have a reaction. This guy doesn't have a reaction. None of these other guys have reactions, which is exactly what we want. That looks very good, guys. So now let's actually map the correct reaction, excuse me, guys. So like right now, it's saying this reaction is 3, and this is actually not correct. This is just using this stub data that we have in here. So let's actually get the correct reaction for a specific message. So how are we going to do that, guys? First off, let's actually print. I'm going to put on up here right here. And I just want to actually print, or should we even do it inside of our channel view model to make sure we're getting, let's put an on up here. So what I want to do is I want to actually make sure that we're decoding the messages. So I'm going to say, this is yelling at us. Actually, yeah, that's an if block. So let's put it after the shadow. So what do we want to do in this one up here? Well, I just want to print the message reaction. I want to print the reaction for a specific message. So I'm just going to say message.reactions, and I just want to map it. And I'm just going to use the key. So I'm going to say $0.0 and remember the key is the actual emoji itself. If we jump to the completed version of our project, the reactions, the key is the emoji, and the value is the emoji count. So now let us put something here. I'm just going to put message reaction view reactions, paste that in our console. Let's run our project and let's validate that we are actually, decoding our reactions, because we just did those decoding inside of our message item right here, right? We're looking inside of our dictionaries to make sure we have reactions and user reactions. So let's actually validate that. So if we jump into a channel really quickly again, and I'm gonna expand this, jump into a channel, look at that. So we have 3 emojis, the same like, the art, and the pray icon. Let's validate that. Let's jump into our database. Look at that, guys. That is correct, right? So let's say, for example, I remove this art icon. I'm going to delete this path, okay? Let us run our project again and make sure it is actually showing that as well. It is still showing that specific reaction, because then we're going to use that to power our actual message reaction view. And look at that, we only have 2 reactions, so that's perfect. That means we're actually decoding our message reactions correctly. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove this unappear block, and I'm going to stop the simulator and let us get on with our business. So what would we need to do now? So with that in play, all I'm just going to do to get the emoji, instead of having this dummy emoji or this stub data, and I'm going to remove this, I'm just going to create let emoji. And what is emoji going to be? Well, we can actually create it up here as a computer property. We can just say var private var emojis, or you could call it reactions. It doesn't really matter. And it's just going to be an array of strings. Okay. And what do we want to do? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to say the message.map message.reactions, because remember the reactions again is a key value pair of emoji and emoji counts. So I want to do that mapping. I want to convert it to an array of string, basically just an array of the actual emojis. And that's all this is. This is going to be, I'm just going to return that. And so now I'm going to take this emojis and use it to power this, and it's already doing that, and it's already doing that. But what about the emoji count? And wait, why is this? Yep, that's working out. So what about the emoji count? So all I'm doing in the completed version of the project, I'm actually just adding up all the emoji counts for a specific emoji or for a specific message. So in the completed version of the project, all I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, go into the reactions node and then add up all the counts. So all the emoji values, all the emoji counts. So this is going to be 3 plus 1, which is going to be 4. So that's our emoji count. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use the reduce function. So I'm going to create another computer property here, and I'm going to call it, stats, or let's just say emojis count. And this is just going to be a string, and we're just going to say return message.reactions. Okay, so what do we want to do now? Well, we want to map it again, but this time around, we're going to say .value, and the value, remember, again, is our emoji count. You can say right here, emoji count, right? It's an integer, and I'm going to convert this into I'm going to say let stats is equals to that. So this is going to be an array of integer, and you can validate that really quickly when we start typing into stats. You can see it's an array of emoji counts, which is just integer. So we can actually run a reduce on this. So I'm going to say return stats.reduce, which is going to, let's see, what's the syntax? I always forget the syntax for this. I think this is what we want. And so this is going to add up all those integer inside of our array. And now it's yelling at us that we cannot convert emoji count, aka integer, to return type int. Yes, we can. All we got to do is put the description, and that's all. So essentially what we're doing here is we're taking all of this. For example, we have 3, we have 1, we're just saying 3 plus 1, and we're converting it to a string, which is going to return 4. So instead of saying, 3 right here, all we're going to do is we're just going to say emojis counts, right? But actually, you know what? Let me return a integer instead of the description right here. But what I want to do is I only want to show the emojis counts because look at the completed version of the project. We're actually not showing it counts. So we only want to show the emojis counts if it's greater than 2. So I'm going to say if emojis counts is greater than 2, go right ahead and actually show the text, right? And then we're going to say emojis count the description. So let's go ahead and run our project. And now we're going to get the correct emoji count for our emojis. So let's wait for that bad boy to boot up, jump into there, jump into a channel, and look at that, guys. We have the pray icon and we have the thumbs up, and it says 4. So what happens if we select again? And as you can see, this is a bug. We need to fix that really quickly. But what happens if we click on the art icon, right? It doesn't really do anything. We need to update that, right? We need to be able to reflect the latest updates for our specific emoji count. And let's go out of the channel. Let's come back in. It's going to reflect the latest one. As you can see now, it reflects it. So we want to be able to refresh that instantaneously and have that actually show. And also we want to be able to, only show the selected or the last selected emoji without adding this circle to every single emoji in our reaction picker view. And so let's jump into our reaction picker view. So I'm going to Command Shift and O, and I'm going to say reaction picker view, and I'm going to go right ahead and comment out the selected emoji indicator inside of our button body. And I'm going to run our project, and let's see what that looks like. So it should not really show that highlighted, that selected indicator for a specific emoji. So if we long press on our message, notice we no longer have the indicator. Anyways, guys, this episode is already getting super long. I'm trying to do a better job of breaking things down, especially each episode into smaller modules as opposed to, like 30, 40 minutes long video. In the next episode, however, we are going to actually add this, selected indicator for every message that we have already reacted to. And also we're going to automatically refresh our view to show the new reaction. So for example, if we had a sad icon, like a sad emoji, that should pop up right away. We shouldn't have to go out of the channel and come back into the channel for us to see it. So hopefully you guys are having fun in this series, guys. In the next episode, we're going to wrap up our chat reaction functionality, and hopefully you're having fun. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.